Hello, and welcome back to another video tutorial for the Lonely Mountain Snow Riders level editor. In this video, we are going to go over resting and spectator spots. Every official Lonely Mountain Snow Riders trail has one resting spot and a spectating spot at the end of the trail. When working with the editor, you will also be able to make your own resting spots. To find the resting spots, we have to go to our trail interactions tools. From there, we can go to the button that has a coffee mug icon. This is the resting spots tool. Now that we know where it is in the UI, let's prepare our terrain for a brand new resting spot. I think I want to have it straight to the right of the starting line. So I am going to increase the terrain to the right a bit. And remove some trees that are in the way. Now we're ready to place a resting spot area. Going back to our resting spot tool, we just have to press the add resting spot button. This spawns a spherical trigger. If players enter the area of this sphere while playing, they will be able to enter your resting spot. We can also move it so it is exactly in the place we want it to be. In my case, I want to have it here over the edge. With the trigger size setting, we can increase or decrease the size of this sphere. I could pull it up to 9 to have it cover a bit more area for my players to enter it. But the resting spot doesn't feel nice without a bit of decoration. When decorating a resting spot, you may want to think about a small, nice contained environment and some sitting positions for your 8 players. Now that I've done a nice small environment, we can go back to the resting spot and modify the positions of our players, skis, and respawn positions. You can just click directly the dot of the item that you want to move around. For example, clicking the purple dot will start moving the purple player, and I can adjust it a bit so it's sitting on this trunk. Or we can also go here to the left where it says player position. Right now none is selected, and I can select my blue position. This will select my blue player and I can move it just as I did with the purple one. We can also change its sitting position. It can either be sitting on a chair or a trunk, could also work as a chair. Sitting with hanging legs, this could work for cliffs, for example. Sitting on the ground, if this guy was just here on the ground sitting on the snow. Or it could straight up just be standing. However, this guy looks like he wants to sit on that trunk. The placement priority will decide which resting positions will be taken first as more players enter the resting spot. Sits with higher priority will be taken before sits with lower priority. So, for instance, if I right now decide that I want this one to have low priority, the purple one would always be taken before the blue one since it has high priority. I think that kind of makes sense, since the purple one will be closer to the camera. Now I can do the same thing I did for these 2-player positions, for all the other players and also for the skis. When moving the skis, just as with the players, you can change the gear layout. In this case, they can either be standing as an X, they could be parallel to each other, with their poles hanging. They can be parallel with the poles next to them. They can lean on each other, or they can be standing away from each other with the poles crossed. Now I'll position all these skis. Now we can adjust the respawn positions for the players. These are the positions which each player will take once they decide to leave the resting spot. When they leave the resting spot, they will be facing in the direction of the arrow. So you generally want them to respawn in a position where it's easy to exit the resting spot and go back to the main trail. Finally, the last thing to edit to finish our resting spot is the camera. If we tick up the edit camera field, we enter the edit camera mode. We can reposition it and rotate it so it's aiming towards our players. As you can see, while you have the resting spot selected, your camera preview will show how the resting spot will look like when players enter it instead of the regular fixed camera view. That is, the camera preview will update as long as you keep on moving the resting spot camera. In addition to moving and rotating your camera, you can modify the field of view, depth of field, and focal length. Now, if we go into play mode and go towards our resting spot, we will be able to enter it. I'll press Y and I'll enjoy the view. Then I can exit and I will respawn in my defined respawn position. Remember, if there are many positions that have high priority assigned, one will be taken at random if you're the first player entering it. Even though there's only one resting spot in each of the official trails of Lonely Mountain Snow Riders, you can put multiple of them in your own trails if you want to do so. Let me remove this too. There is one thing left, that is the spectating spot. Usually placed after the finish line, the spectating spot is a special resting spot. We can place a new resting spot here. Ideally, you would also decorate it, since when the race or team mode is over, spectating spots will also act as resting spots. However, if you finish and the race is still going, you can enter a spectating spot to watch other players still racing. There can only be one spectator spot in your whole trail. To assign one of your resting spots as spectator spot, you just have to go to the spectator spot field and tick it up. As you see, this eye icon showed up right next to its name on the resting spots list. I could also go to my resting spot 1 and tick the spectator spot setting. If I do that, my resting spot 2 will stop being the spectator spot. However, as I said, I would recommend to have the spectator spot after the finish line. So I would in fact like my resting spot 2 to be my spectator spot. If I start playing, I will be able to go towards the finish line and enter the spectator spot. Of course, if you're playing within the editor, and because this is not a race, you will not enter it as a spectator spot, but rather, when you enter it, it will act as a resting spot. However, because its spectator spot field is set to true, if this is played online, you will be able to spectate other players from here. And that would be the end of the resting spots and spectator spots video. This wraps up the second to last video of the very basics, since the next video will be the one where we will learn how to publish and upload our levels to the Steam Workshop. Thanks for watching and see you in that one.